What's up YouTube? It's your girl Yoko by Biola here with the new YouTube video. I'm actually pretty nervous to be sharing this video with you because I'm so used to coming at my videos and any of the workshops that I do from the perspective of healed, and I'm coming to you in a new perspective as actually in the process of healing in a certain area. So that's a little bit uncomfortable, but I am looking forward to sharing and kind of exposing and being vulnerable here with you today. There are 4 different attachment styles. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to be talking about the one that personally is reflective of me, that I know that I have. And if you are interested after the video in exploring the other 3 attachment styles, let me know in the comments below and I will make sure to do videos on those. So before we get into the video, there are 2 things that I really want to just get clarified before we move forward, and that is the importance of mental health. This is something that I've continued to learn and explore as I've gotten older, and as I've began this process of healing and or enlightenment or spiritual growth and expansion. You know, mental health tends to get overlooked a lot of the times, and there's a lot of shame connotated to mental health issues and mental wellness. So before we get into anything, I just want to preface this by saying that mental health matters. Your mental health and mental wellness matters, and you don't have to feel any shame towards that. If you do feel a little bit of shame when it comes to your mental wellness, I completely understand. I'm feeling a little bit of shame, a mixture of shame and confusion right now as well, moving forward with this video. But I just want to let you know that your mental health matters. Number 2 would be the idea of allowing yourself to lose this notion that if you do suffer from mental health or mental wellness, that there's something wrong with you, or there's something kind of inertly wrong or not right. When we have this idea of something being wrong with us, if you fall into that category of labeling or identifying yourself in that way, you have to think about on the other spectrum. You might have this kind of perceived notion of perfection, which I can completely relate to because I did have that at one point in time as well. And so if you do have that notion, kind of begin to consider that you are perfect with your flaws and in your flaws. It's not getting beyond your flaws that makes you perfect. To be without form or with blemish is almost like unheard of in this 3rd dimension. What makes us perfect is that we're perfect in our flaws, we're perfect in our contractions, we're perfectly made up in our complicated states. It's not the absence of them that we are made perfect or that we're perfect, but it's with all of those components that we still are able to grow and expand and love that makes us these perfect, phenomenal beings. So moving forward, allowing yourself to lose this false sense of perfection, because that tends to want to have us put up walls and to disassociate with our mental wellness, and just allow yourself to receive that you might be perfect in your complicated and kind of interesting, flawed state, so that you can move forward in receiving this attachment style if it does indeed apply to you. Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style. So I'm going to first start the video by just explaining what that is, and then some of the characteristics related to that. I'll also, briefly talk about some of the things that caused me to have that attachment style in my childhood, and then I'll move into how I'm healing from it, or healing to more of a secure attachment style. I do have my handy dandy notes here just in case I get off track. So bear with me if I'm talking slow. I want to talk slow to avoid rushing my words out, and just to give myself time to feel and process what I'm saying. So dismissive avoidant attachment style is basically the opposite of clingy. So there's attachment styles that are very clingy. They tend to be, they gravitate to their partners, or whether they be platonic or non-platonic. They kind of latch on to these people, and those people are somewhat they're responsible for their well-being, their mental health. There's a lot of responsibility that they put on that person, and they cling and they attach. Dismissive avoidant attachment style is the complete opposite. So there's still a baseline of insecurity there, just like with the other attachment styles. But the way that dismissive avoidant attachment styles cope with things is they kind of avoid avoid being in love, or they avoid love because they have somehow internalized love with pain and disappointment, and so they kind of push away from certain things. They're the opposite of clingy. They withdraw in a lot of their relationships, especially when relationships start to move into that space where there's more vulnerability, there's more intimacy, there's more exploring. They tend to withdraw from their partners, and if their partners or their non-platonic friendships tend to draw more in and trying to pull more intimacy from them, they find reasons as to why they should kind of avoid that person or push away or withdraw from that person based on those attributes that person is showing. But what's usually happening is they're just feeling that intimacy, and they're not necessarily comfortable or used to that, and so they withdraw from that because to them it's somehow equated or it's attached to pain. Another one of the tendencies is that it's said that dismissive emotional attachment styles are not very emotional, which I feel like that's completely subjective. I'm actually extremely emotional. Like I'm also an empath. Like I can feel so many emotions all of the time. So it's kind of heightened with why I withdraw, and also because it's heightened with why I withdraw in terms of my attachment style, and also because of my childhood. It's a mixture of that and just feeling so much, within myself, feeling kind of overwhelmed with my emotions at times, and then overwhelmed by the other people's emotions that I'm so sensitive to as a healer and a body worker, and someone who's working with people emotionally and mentally and spiritually. I'm very much empathic, and I can feel all of that, and so it can be really overwhelming for me. People with these attachment styles find it difficult to be intimate, so to allow intimacy to flow through. It's in those points in times that they feel like things are out of control, and if they can't control the relationship or the flow of where the intimacy is coming from, how much they're getting, how much they're giving, then it feels very scary for them. And the scarier it feels, the more they associate with more pain can happen, or more disappointment can happen, and so they tend to withdraw, altogether from being really intimate with others. And they can also be non-intimate with themselves, so they have this ability to kind of turn their emotions off. And it's not that they don't want love, they actually do desire love and deep intimacy. They crave deep intimacy and kind of have these fanatical ideas of what that would look like, but have trouble or struggle with actually creating that bond and relationship with other people because there's such an idea of love equating to pain on the other side, or someone not being able to hold space for them emotionally. The main thing with this attachment style is the fear of someone not being able to hold space for them emotionally, or their emotions being a burden, or someone emotionally abandoning them. So this comes back to the childhood. For me specifically, I grew up in a highly disciplined household. So usually when you grow up in a household, ideally, it's said, that you would have a nice, beautiful harmonization of discipline and nurturing. Those blended together kind of build you up in this, idealistic way. And sometimes people get one or they get the other, or they don't get any of it. In my particular family, like, I grew up in a highly disciplined household, and I didn't get a lot of nurturing. I was right in the middle, and so I kind of was left to my own devices growing up. Kind of like my older sister was the golden child, and my younger sibling was just this beautiful vessel, just very jovial. And growing up when I was younger, I grew up very, I was just very kind of awkward, and I was also a little bit depressed as a young child. Like, I always was frowning, I was very unhappy, and I think it kind of concerned my parents, but also made them a little bit avoidant of me. And I was also very highly emotional, so there's a lot of emotional needs that I had that just weren't ever met. So when it came to, like, I skinned my knee, I fell off my bike, I sliced my hand open with, trying to open a can of tuna or something. It was always just like, oh, look what you've done, like, don't cry, I'm gonna wipe this, clean this up, or don't you dare cry, or, you fall or something happens, oh, go outside and play and just run that off, or do something like that. So, just my emotions were very kind of thrown to the wayside. There was never any kind of nurturing for them. And what started to develop was with my caretakers, or with my parents, I depended on them less and less for emotional stability. Like, I didn't feel like I could get that from them, so I just slowly weaned myself off of depending on them in that way. Also, what started to happen was that my parents were kind of, they didn't really love unconditionally, they loved based on conditions. So you were loved not for who you really were, but for what you did. So I was kind of always this people pleaser growing up. You're trained to be a people pleaser. I was trying to please my parents to get that kind of nurturing, the praise and the affirmations and things like that, because we were disciplined really hardcore to do well in school and things like that. So when we do well, it was kind of like, when we do well, it would be like neutral. And if we did something that was like above average in my parents' mindset, or in their gaze, then we'd get a little praise. But besides that, everything was kind of attributed to what we did. So we'd get a little bit of praise and stuff if we did well in school, if we, cleaned the house the way, just like did our chores, certain things like that. But for just being who we were, for just being who I am, Biola, there was not really any respect given to that. There was actually almost concern as to who I was. So I needed to do a lot of things to make up for the fact that I was kind of a mediocre, average human being, or less than average, it seemed like in my parents' eyes. And so growing up, I just tried to outperform all of the time, because I just didn't believe that I didn't have a lot of self-worth attached to who I was without doing things. And so that created a people-pleasing tendency, and it also made me less and less dependent on other people emotionally, because I didn't really feel necessarily worthy of love unless I was doing something. So as I've grown up, I've noticed this in my relationships, platonic and non-platonic. I see how when it comes to affection and things like that, I withdraw. I see how when it comes to getting close or intimate with my family or with my friends, I withdraw. And with relationships, I withdraw. I'm quick to find reasons why someone is an unsavory candidate or partner for me, which is a lot of discernment at one end, but at another end of the spectrum, it's also my attachment style kind of rearing its head, peeking up, because I'm fearful of someone loving me, because I just equate it to so much pain. And I also am just weary that someone will be able to actually hold space for me emotionally. So all of these things have been really challenging to become aware of, but at the same time, it kind of allows me to take a deep breath and relax, because I was attributing things, you know, these actions that I was noticing to flaws in my inherent makeup, which can be really difficult for someone to come away with. And it's hard to come to a space of self-love wholly when you think that you're actually uniquely flawed in some way. And so now that I'm able to understand this attachment style and kind of sit with myself and look at my actions, but also look at certain roots and begin to undo it, it's really phenomenal, because that flawed state is actually a lie. There's a reason why I've developed these characteristics, and there's a way for me to begin to heal them. You know, I don't have any, you know, heaviness towards like my family or my parents, you know, or, you know, for what happened when I was a child. I know that my parents did the best to love me with the best tools that I had. My parents, they're originally from Nigeria and didn't grow up in the best circumstances, especially my dad. And so I'm really sympathetic to what they were given, and I think that's super essential when you are healing through a certain attachment style or healing from anything. You really have to come to a place of entering into the process of forgiveness. This is the main thing my teacher has taught me, is that forgiveness is a process, and you don't have to get to a point of forgiving someone from A to Z overnight, but you can start from A to B in as much time as you need and carry that over to Z as long as you need. So entering in the process of forgiveness allows you to take your time as you move through that, however much time your healing takes. So I've allowed myself to enter in that process, and so I'm excited to progress. So now I want to move on to the ways that the steps and the ways that I'm actually healing from this dismissive avoidant attachment style, which has been interesting, uncomfortable, and actually pretty exciting, all wrapped into one. The one thing I will say to preface this, one of the main ways or tools of healing that I've used in my practice has been yoga. And I started practicing almost 10 years ago, like it's been a decade ago. And even before I was aware of this specific attachment style that I had, I still found healing in yoga, specifically in that it helped me to have a sensual, sensory experience with my physical and emotional body. I always say this to my students and in my workshops, and it's a huge wake-up call for me, and I hope for you as well, in that when I say sensual or sensory, that has nothing to do with sexual. Sensual or sensory is like an awakening of one's emotions. It's allowing yourself to begin to feel. And that's what I was not doing. Like, I was walking through life as a zombie, compounding so much emotional trauma, mental trauma, and physical trauma, and not being able to really feel it. So it just kept compounding. The more it compounded, the more numb I became, and the more I just walked around like a zombie. Like, I didn't feel a damn thing, y'all. And so when I started to practice yoga, and you should definitely check out my 5 self-healing benefits of yoga video, because I really thoroughly break this down step by step. But when I started practicing yoga, it started to allow me to begin to build self-awareness, where I could actually hear my thoughts towards myself. And from there, it slowly started to allow me to begin to feel feel the emotions that I had and that had been stored up. And I started to have this sensual, sensory experience, like I was becoming alive again. And so that's been really important in terms of like healing from this attachment style. And to make that even more specific, it's the most important thing has been feeling and becoming aware of my emotions, not identifying with them. So I'm not my emotions, but understanding when I do have them and processing through them, giving myself the space to process through them. Because people who are dismissive avoidant attachment, or who have these attachment styles, are master suppressors when it comes to their emotions and their feelings. They're highly, highly independent. Like, I just am so do things by myself because I just don't trust people to hold space for me emotionally, or to really hold space for me physically. I don't really, have that trust in people. And so they're just highly, highly independent. And when it comes to their emotions, they seem to suppress them and push them down. So really allowing yourself to begin to feel your emotions is super essential. Another one of the things that I'm practicing and that I'm doing and have been doing for a while right now is learning how to nurture myself, because I didn't get that nurturing when I was a young child. So the experience that I feel like I was lacking as a child is the experience that I'm giving myself as an adult now. For me, that was nurturing. I needed nurturing. I needed the rubs, the touching. I needed the soft words. I needed the intimacy. I needed it, and I didn't get it. And so I'm giving it to myself now. And I talk about this also with my students, the way I really have a sensual experience with myself every day, when I'm waking up in the morning, when I'm getting out of the shower, when I'm putting on coconut oil, when I'm rubbing the coconut oil into my body. I'm really feeling my body. I'm enjoying the touch. When I'm putting on lotion, when I'm drinking my water, when I'm eating my food, everything is sensual. When I'm rubbing my body down after a long day. These are the traits that I would like to have a partner do for me eventually, but these are also traits that I want to be able to do for myself and that I want to be able to do for another person. But I have to give myself the space to do that for myself first, so I can be intimate with myself, be nurturing with myself, and ultimately allow that to permeate into my external when the timing is right. Another thing that I'm doing is always growing in self-love. If you have any type of attachment style, especially this attachment style, under the layer of, under deep within, you are such a nurturing, incredibly nurturing being, incredibly nurturing. But you fear how nurturing you are. You fear that it'll be taken advantage of. You fear that you'll be nurturing to the wrong person, and they just won't, they'll mismanage it, or they'll take advantage of it, or they'll completely dismiss it. And you also have this innate fear, potentially, that you're not worthy of love. Like, especially if you're a people pleaser, then you have to do, generate all these things in order for someone to love you. And just for you alone by yourself, it doesn't feel like that's good enough. Like, who's gonna just love me for myself? And so when I realized this, I had to really start to learn how to love myself. And this is something that we would hope that parents would teach us how to do at a young age. But when your parents don't lack that, when they lack that self-love in themselves, when they attach their worth to what they do and what they look like, it's really hard for them to give you what they don't have. So we can't blame them for that. But when we get that awareness, we can begin to hold space to love ourselves. So I've really become radical in my self-love practices and in setting my boundaries with, people, whether it be my family or my friends, really being detailed and clear as to how I'd like people to, to hold space for me, and also how they want me to hold space for them, Pouring into my self-love has been essential, really rectifying my mental body in terms of those deep-rooted beliefs that really are permeated from unworthiness and self-deprecation. I've really had to rectify those and reprogram and begin to receive that I am worthy of love because I am love. Not because of anything I'm doing or anything I'm going to do or anything I've done in the past, but because I am love. And to love is to be. And I want to be. I just want to be. I want to be Biola. I just want to be, you know? And I want to create the space for myself to be in love, and I want to create the space for other people to be in love as well, just because they are love. Not because of anything they do, but because they are a replica or manifestation of love from divine sovereign God, you know? And so every day I'm rehearsing that. I'm saying it to myself. And people say this about the affirmative thoughts, affirmations and stuff. And it sounds corny. It sounds hella fucking corny, because I'm just like, I'm looking at my mirror, right, saying these things to myself, whatever. I don't really believe them. So I have personalized my affirmations based on the healing that I need. It's hard to just take any old affirmation and use it, because it doesn't necessarily apply to your specific healing. But if you can take affirmations that really apply to your specific healing that you're working on, whether it be a specific area in your body or emotional body, I find that to be a lot more effective, and they start to really resonate. So that self-love piece is super important. The next way that I'm like healing myself, I wrote this one down, is separating love from anxiety. So when I am close to someone, or start to get close to someone, whether it be a friend or a lover, I immediately start to feel anxiety. Like, how long is this gonna last? What do I do? What am I supposed to express? Like, I get anxiety, like in terms of that closeness actually starting to develop, and I can feel it coming on. And I almost find more security in fanatical relationships than actual real ones, because they don't have that anxiety. And so what I'm learning to do is, when that anxiety comes, I let it have its pace. I let it have its place, because what I tend to do is it'll start to come, and then I will immediately retract. Like, I'm running out of there. I'm withdrawing. I'm either snapping back at the person shortly after to push them away, or I myself am withdrawing somehow. So instead, I sit and I receive the anxiety, actually sit in it, and I let it have its place. I don't withdraw, and I don't force myself forward before I'm ready, but I let it have its place. And then it's like a cloud, it evaporates, and then I can see the love. And when I can see that it's love, when I can and discern that this is intimacy happening, this is love, this is an exchange of love and connection happening. I take a deep breath, and I lean in slowly at my pace, and I'm communicating this. Like, those people who are close to me, they're aware of this attachment style. I've told them, so they know how, I take my time, and I start to lean in slow, lean into the love slow, and I start to kind of bounce it back and forth with them. So they're giving it to me, then I exchange it, and I, just keep letting the exchange happen. And that has been really profound, to kind of sit in the anxiety and let it dissolve. Just allowing myself to feel and self-heal has been really, really profound. Also very uncomfortable, like I said, but exciting, because what tends to happen when you are healing a specific part of your emotional or your mental body, or even your physical body, we think that the pain just keeps going and going and going and going. And it has a measure. It actually has a measure. What is endless or infinite is love, but pain is not. Fear is not. It has a measure that has to be filled. And so just knowing that, when I get to that measure, when I just bust it wide open, and let myself have my fill, expansion is so quick to come. Like, it's almost immediate that expansion comes. Like, every time, whether it be crying or dumping myself open emotionally, or like a heavy state of like emotional distress, like as soon as I give myself to it and I really explore what's there, expansion is quick to meet me on the other side. Like love is quick to meet me on the other side. And it's almost like I needed to have that point in order to see what I needed to progress out of it. So I don't deny myself the self-examination, which is what we tend to do when we suffer from this type of attachment style. We suppress our emotions and we are horrible at self-examination. We don't want to look at them, we don't want to see them, we don't want to know what's there. And so beginning to give yourself permission to self-examine is going to be really a key component to your healing, your self-healing. And I know this has been huge for me, and the more that these specific terms or attachment styles or mental states are, the more I'm made aware of these areas, like the more I know, the more I'm made aware of what's going on, the more I can begin to heal from it. So don't deny yourself the ability to look, because your healing starts in the acknowledgement. It's the first place it starts, in the acknowledgement. I feel pretty good because it feels nice to be open and honest, to not hide. So I thank you for allowing me to share this with you today. If this attachment style applies to you at all, or if you can identify with it at all, leave me a comment below and let me know some of the ways that you might be self-healing, or if you have any questions about this attachment style, or if you'd like me to do a video on the 3 other attachment styles, which are not my attachment styles personally, but I've researched them thoroughly because I want to be made aware of other people's attachment styles, so I can hold space for them accordingly. If you have any questions or comments, or you just really like what you heard today, please give me that thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to follow me on the gram at Yoga by Biola. That's where I'm dishing some daily ascension tips. Also, I have so much more to come. I'm doing the Divine Feminine Yoga Workshop here in Seattle on March 30th at the Virago Gallery in West Seattle. If you are in Washington or are based in the area, I invite you to join us. We have 20 spots and we've sold about half of those tickets, so I think we have about 10 to 12 spots left. If you want to join us, go ahead and head to my website at yogabyBiola.com. I'll also put the link for the website below where you can register for that workshop. I look forward to hearing from you soon, and have a beautiful day.